All right, everybody. So today's video is going to be on Joe the Brown Bomber Louis, famous boxer from around the times of like 1914, around that era, during our world wars. Very interesting story on this boxer. Basically, the next heavyweight boxing champion since the first Jack Johnson. So let's get into it. I would like to start this video with a clip from another YouTuber that I say did a very great job making a detailed documentary on Joe Louis's life, from his beginning of his boxing career till the end. So look him up. YouTuber's name is Joseph Vincent. Has a lot of great boxing videos. Want to give credit where credit's due. Today's video, I'll be mainly talking about what Joe Louis represents. All right, everybody, enjoy.
Covered boxing. He won the Golden Gloves and turned pro.
People don't realize how many times he fought as an amateur. He fought over 50 times, won a Gold Glove, and found that area of competence that all kids are looking for.
Louis fought and won 23 fights in his first year as a pro, knocking out all but 4.
Backing off, only courage keeping him up. Another good right hand by Louis, and another! And down goes Alator.
He was one of the most balanced fighters I ever saw, Ken. Always in position with his footwork.
There's that left hook.
To lose with the best.
Alator draped on the rope. He's being counted out.
He's just so pragmatic and just so delivering. He gets turned, he just does it like he's breathing. He's a master.
I think he was the best heavyweight that I ever saw in my life.
Joe Louis goes on to win another in his march to the World's Heavyweight Championship.
His management came up with the brilliant strategy to grow Louis's name.
All right, everybody. So first of all, I'd like to say shout out to my subscribers that have given me the ideas for these videos. I mainly didn't really know too much on the history of boxing, the history of its combatants, and I'm very glad that I have gotten to know them a little bit better. For example, on the videos I've done with Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Robinson, and today will be Joe the Brown Bomber Louis. Researching his story, very inspiring, honestly, very entertaining, somewhat tragic, obviously, you know, just like life, everything has ups and downs. Also, a thank you to everybody for 700 plus subscribers. Hoping that many of you are enjoying this channel. Feel free to ask me any questions, express any concerns, any ideas that you may have. Watch out for my next upcoming video where I react to a situation where a TikToker of 19-year-old is randomly punching random individuals for his TikTok shorts. So you'll hear my opinion on that as well, coming soon. So let's get to it. All right. Now, again, like I said, this YouTuber, Joseph Vincent, did a really great job. So what mainly this video is about is to express what I feel he's contributed to Joe the Brown Bomber Louis to our time today. So as you heard, Joe Louis was already a champion by the age of 15. Guy was an incredible fighter, incredible boxer. So what I feel, first of all, that he did was he helped give inspiration to his race and culture. He was boxing during a time where, you know, the diversity was bad, as we know it, in the U.S., where African American individuals really did have a bad, bad situations. Was just had it really, really bad. Just not to get too far into it. Regardless of how good he was, Joe Louis, there was still a lot of, you could say, racism, a lot of hate towards a skin killer, regardless of how good he was. A lot of tips that he got from his coach was that he had to be twice as good as anyone else in order for him to make a difference. And Joe Louis was a very humble individual. Whenever he would win his battles, he wouldn't gloat, he wouldn't showboat. He would take his win and he would move on. Knowing what his knowing what was going to help him move ahead during those times. So he was an inspiration to his race, to his culture. Basically saying that if he can do it, anybody can, which is an inspiration to anybody, honestly. The message that he sent was not just to the color of his skin, was to everybody. The guy was a champion, and he continued being a champion. He continued being the best he could be and better. A very hard puncher, but if you watch his fights, very strategically aiming towards the jaw. It looks like he was mainly going towards a knockout each time. I mean, if you think about it, in the fighting world, that's really what you want to do, is you want to put your opponent down before they get an idea of how you fight, or before they get the upper hand. I mean, honestly, if you're in a situation where you're fighting multiple opponents and the only option you have is to fight back, you would aim for the jaw and try to put down as many of them as possible. Very smart tactics. And I'll put another clip on before this video is over. But something else that he did that maybe is not talked about in this manner is that when he started boxing, he raised the bar. He basically made sure that his opponents knew how good he was by his level of skill, that anybody watching his fights realized, you know what? If a fighter like this exists, I need to become this much better. And this always happens. If there's ever a great fighter, a great martial artist, a great boxer, a great sportsmanship, you have to pass that bar. You need to train to better this person in an arena where it's all about performance. Sorry for this light. Now when I'm off work, times change, so it's a lot darker. So see if I'll get stopped for this. There you go, everybody. All right. So I feel that the Brown Bomber Louis was not just an inspiration to his racing culture, but he was an inspiration for his time. Not just the oppression he was facing, but the level of skill he put into himself so that other similar fighters can reach that skill level, can surpass that skill level. I mean, he was basically defending his title 25 rounds with very few losses. So, and I suggest you look up his fights. He was fighting monsters. He was fighting people that were ending other boxers' lives. Now again, I know a broad view of what he represents, but I won't forget his name, and I won't forget, the level of humbleness he had. So now we have Joe Louis being, fairly hated, but the fact that he's a very skilled fighter, and he is, again, not hated for his character, hated for who he was, for what he looks like. But then comes another boxer representing Germany, and this is during the time of Hitler, during the time of World War II, this German boxer, I believe his name was Max something, didn't write it down. You can look it up though. He was, just by his race, his culture, he was representing, he was representing Germany and what was happening during German times. So, he did beat Joe Louis in the first match, but it wasn't for the title shot. So now this German boxer had the chance to earn the title belt in the US. And the thing with boxing is that ever since the beginning of time, it's been a lot of politics. I mean, it's not just our culture, other cultures too, just like how in China you have that mixed martial artist that was basically ending traditional martial artists. They tried very hard to silence him, and they did a really, really good job at it, because it is, it is their country. So now we have our country, which, we have our flaws as well, but you live where you live, and, you do the best with what you got. So, no complaints here, So now you have, you have politics coming into play, and, the U.S. does not want this German fighter to get this belt and take it back home with him, especially during these times of, of World War II. So what happens, they give Joe Louis another shot with another fighter. He gets a chance to earn the title himself. And through politics, he gets it. He gets that chance. And now he's the champion. Now, obviously, in politics, this is a big W. It's a big win. But in the life of a fighter, we know the truth. Joe Louis knew that in order for him to be a champion, he had to fight this German boxer, Max. I hope he's got his name right. So he knows he had to win the fight against Max to truly call himself a champion. So he went for this fight. And not only did the government start supporting Joe Louis, but, he basically represented now the USA. Now he was the beacon for the US. So this was no longer a fight against two individuals. This was a fight between two countries. And dare I say it, kind of like Rocky IV, obviously without the active war going on, but it went from a boxing match to a war between countries. And you had the U.S. president calling Joe Louis saying, hey man, you represent us, win one for the good guys, because at that time, that's what was going on. So Joe Louis had that pressure on his shoulders. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for his country. So he got that match. He trained like a martial artist trains, like a champion boxer would train, in solitude. He trained holding his skills. He trained like every movie montage you can think of, from Rocky to Kickboxer to anything you can think of. He trained, and he won. So, well, here's another clip. Hope you enjoy it.
This individual in the world, a black man, was once again the heavyweight champion of the world.
In the black community, he was more than a hero. He was the shining example of overcoming the odds.
Joe Louis wears the crown of all the heavyweights, despite the arguments as to whether he is the real champion or not.
Yeah, he wins the title. And of course, the biggest sport in the country. So all the press is there, and Joe, you're the champion world. Not yet. Not till I beat that man. He didn't even have to say his name.
That man was Max Schmeling. Joe refused to call himself a champion, until he avenged his only defeat.
Joe Louis defends his World Heavyweight Championship against former title holder Max Schmeling, the only man who has ever defeated the champion.
Louis secluded himself into training. He knew, as did everyone else, that this fight was the most important of his life. Viewed as a battle of nations, politics, ideas. Boxing is war individualized. Pitting man against man.
The heavyweight championship, its meaning was transcending pure supremacy in the ring. Its meaning was really that of a world beater.
German troops marched into Austria for what the Germans called the reunification of the two countries.
Everybody recognized what Schmeling represented.
The stage is set for their historic rematch.
The match had become more than sport. War was coming.
All right, so fast forward. Joe Louis enlisted. He joined the war, and the humble man he was. I mean, a lot of his winnings, like they say, a lot of his purse went towards the Navy. You know, went towards the military. Like, he invested his money into the military. You know, I mean, for whatever they needed. So a lot of charity came from Joe Louis. You know, you could see that he did love his country, you know, regardless of how they felt about him in the beginning and then now towards the end. You could tell that he did have a sense of patriotism, and he showed it, you know. But now fast forward to towards, you know, the end of his career, is that obviously, you know, you make a lot of money, and, you know, it's not here in the U.S. It's not always yours. You know, you have the IRS to pay, you have taxes, you know, you pay the government. You know, I mean, you live in a very good country. So guess what? It ain't free. Now, this is not a video sharing my opinions or ideas about our government. No, this is just what happened during that time. Is that, you know, Joe Louis fell into a hole where he owed taxes, he owed the IRS, and it was enough for him to have to come out of retirement, fight all over again, and, you know, defend his title. And yeah, of course, I mean, age gets to us all, and yeah, he lost his fight. Not only that, you know, he had to keep on fighting. He had to take certain jobs he probably wouldn't have taken. Could the IRS have forgiven his debt? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they just want to keep it fair. Nobody's forgiven. So, you know, no special treatment for anybody. Makes sense. I mean, again, not taking sides here. But Joe Louis had to do what he had to do to survive. So he fought again. And he finally fought Rocky Marciano. Name might sound very familiar. And, you know, he lost that bout. He lost against Rocky Marciano again. Another great fighter. Maybe I might touch up on his history as well. But, you know, Joe Louis was a fighter. Obviously, nowadays, you know, a lot of these fighters are strategic with their income, their money. Boxing's a job, you know. You got to take care of it, you know. It's not, you know, you get a job, you don't just give it to charity. You know, you give a portion to charity, but you got to pay yourself too so that you can survive in the country you live in. And I'm pretty sure that applies to every country, not just ours. So, you know, didn't do things the way that we probably should have done. But, you know, lived his life. Was an inspiration to many fighters, you know, such as Muhammad Ali as well. You know, and they were there at his funeral. You know, he had a great story. Fairly tragic ending, but, you know, he did die a legend. So look up his story. Joe the Brown Bomber Robinson. Inspirational. And obviously, just like any story, tragic. I mean, you know, a lot of impactful people will have their tragic ending or a tragic story. You know, I mean, look at Bruce Lee. Guy passed away at what, 33, 34? You know, that's not old at all. You know, who knows what more he could have given us if he would have lived longer. You know, so things happen. But, you know, very enjoyable documentary, again, from Joseph Vincent. You got to give credit where credit's due. You know, thank you for using, I used clips from his videos. So, you know, but other than that, I mean, you know, very humble boxer, very great fighter, and he set the bar for other boxers. And yeah, you need those type of combatants to continue to raise that bar, to ensure that people are putting in the work, putting in the effort to prove themselves that they are those good combatants. All right, guys, feel free to leave your comments, concerns, questions, anything. If I left anything out, I apologize in advance. You know, I thank my subscribers for giving me these topics. I'm not an expert in these fighters yet, but, you know, it usually takes me time, you know. I learn more about these combatants as time goes by. I look at more documentaries, more shorts, more factual events, you know, getting to know even more about them. Maybe in the future I'll make a more detailed video towards a lot of these fighters that I've talked about previously in my channels. But other than that, everybody, have a great day.